So Ben Newman, fellow Spartan, like we got to go there, right? Because go green,
Well,
go
hey,
white,
go
right?
green.
Yeah, baby, go white. I love it. Well, there's so much that we can unpack in service of pouring into the people that we have the pleasure to pour into through this platform. But I really want to start here. How did you get started in this work that you do, and you do so well, and you help and serve so many people? How did you get started?
Well, I'll tell a fun story, which I think for your listeners, with the legends that you've had, because of the legends that you've worked with and impacted in the world of sports, a lot of people don't realize, because I do so much in sports, that 70% of my work is still corporate. My first 5 years, I didn't do anything in sports. And believe it or not, my work in sports started when my high school basketball coach, Todd Basler, who still to this day is one of the greatest mentors in my life. I played for him 30-something years ago.
That's
He
amazing.
called me and he said, "Benny boy," and he still calls me Benny boy. He says, "Benny boy, these guys are underperforming. I need you to get in this locker room and fire them up the way you used to fire up our guys. I need you to come fix this." And it was a Thursday night. I had 2 young kids. And how oftentimes in life, people present an opportunity. I could have been like, "Coach, I'm busy, but I would do anything for this man." So I said, "Coach, I'll be there." So we were playing the number 10 team in the city of St. Louis. I show up, I give this pregame speech. We knock off this team. Long story short, I went back for 8 straight years to my high school. And of course, I never took a dime from the program. I never would have. But we
awesome.
we got kids to D1. We won. We were the last team in the state of Missouri to knock off Jason Tatum when Tatum was a sophomore. He never lost another game in the state of Missouri. So there's these amazing memories. And I always love sharing that story, and I appreciate you asking, because so many people want to compare their chapter 1 to somebody's chapter 20. And I always like to remind people, like, my chapter 1 was in a high school basketball locker room that smelled terrible. And you could have questioned, why did I go back there and why did I say yes to this opportunity? And so I always encourage people that are dreaming, and I'm still dreaming. I chase mentors of mine who have done way more than I've ever done. I just think we have to be where we are and love the opportunities when they're given.
That is so good. And it's so true, right? Like that the world sees, Ben Newman today, but there was a Ben Newman probably sweeping the gym after practices and a motivational speech at his high school, to his high school basketball team, not taking a nickel, which is amazing and awesome. I love that, and it's cool to rewind the tape. Now, Ben, Alabama's mental conditioning coach. Nick Saban is a legend, of course, but you had the opportunity to be really behind the curtain and hear and be a part of and do and coach and lead from the mental side too. These incredible. What stands out most to you about how Coach Saban behaved as a leader?
Oh, I love that's a phenomenal question, because I always love sharing and talking with people. And you've seen this with the tremendous athletes you've worked with. People in life, in business or sports, you can have focus, but then the individuals who understand intentional focus are the ones who perform at the highest level. And I've talked about intentional focus for years. I have never seen an example greater than Coach Saban. So I'll never forget Ginger Gilmore, who just retired. She was at Alabama for over 30 years. She was like the team mom, but she was the doctor. She was like the therapist on site, started in the training room, went on to get her. She's a legend, Ginger Gilmore. And 2017, literally, Saban is getting ready to interview me for the first time. I'm standing outside his office, and she's like, "Ben, this is me. I'm going in with the GOAT one-on-one. Like, you have no idea how this is going to go, right?" So, like, nobody makes me nervous, but I'm nervous to sit with the GOAT. And Ginger's just like, "Ben, I just want to tell you, like, it's different how he does things. Like, he operates as the CEO. He even looks at the food budget to look. He doesn't spend a lot of time on it, but he pays attention to every detail of this program." And when I heard that, I was like, okay, this is going to be different. And I walked in, and from that first conversation to the 15 to 20 times that I would be there a year. I mean, I was probably there 75 times over 5 years, 75, 80 times. It's not like I gave, one speech at training camp and I wasn't there. I was there all the time. And the players always had access to me, even though I was in St. Louis. But his level of intention, not only did I see it in that one conversation, Molly, I saw it everywhere he was in the building. It was like nothing I have ever seen. And so I think his ability to drive intentional focus, which created an expectation, that's the way we show up. He made me better in my work across the board. Even when I would leave that Malmore Athletic Complex in Tuscaloosa, I would think differently with corporate clients because I always believed in it, but I saw it in him at a level that I had never seen it. And that's why those players are meticulous in the details of what it takes to be great.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because you say intentional focus, but I think it's also interesting to pull through, Ben, if I can be so bold as to say, Nick didn't talk about winning, but yet he had intentional focus, right? So my understanding, he's the process guy, right? And I think you said it and he said it. We don't do it till we get it right. We do it until we don't get it wrong.
Those are my two favorite things. Like I always say to people, they're like, "What was it like?" And I'm like, "Well, if you were with me at practice, you'd be on the sideline and you'd always hear two things. What you just shared: we don't do things until we get them right. We do things until we can't get them wrong." And like that was like one of the main cruxes. And the way you do one thing is the way we do everything. And here's what was amazing with Coach Saban, which I just found to be extraordinary. Pick October. You could go in October, right? At that time, any October, you're 5-0, you're number one in the country, you're averaging 50 points a game. And he was extraordinary in how he kept everybody on edge, pursuing how great they could be. So he would break everybody down. So let's say if it's an outdoor practice, always the same thing. He'd break everybody down on the third field, the far field, in the exact same spot every time. And he would say things like this. He'd say, "Guys, I've watched this whole practice." Now, keep in mind, we're 5-0, killing everybody. We're the favorites to win the national championship. "Guys, I watched this practice and I just can't help but think I have to ask you this question. At what point in time are you finally going to show up and choose to do what it takes to be great and to figure out what you need to do every day to be the best you can be?" And you would ask these questions. Molly, you'd walk away going, "Are these guys 0-5 and they can't win a game?"
Right.
But these players, what he was doing through asking great questions was empowering the players not to be content with what the media said, but to constantly scrutinize, can I give more? And I think we all know we can always give more. It's why, I still have two coaches and I read books every day because if I stop trying to figure out ways to get better, I don't think I could ever coach anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Amen. Amen. And so what were some of the kinds of questions, because I'm a huge fan of curiosity too, Ben, and I'm thinking, what were some of the kinds of questions that he asked that helped them see that they were playing around with complacency? They were tinkering on the edge of settling, and he would ask questions and or lead in a way that allowed them to tap into the better version of themselves on their own accord at some level through a little bit of his nudging and leadership. But to me, that's pivotal, is helping people tap into it on their own at some level from an inside-out perspective and go for more and better every day, every play, all the time.
So I'll actually answer that two different ways for perspective for people listening that might be doing things in different ways with their teams or organizations. So the first thing he would do, let's say he would stop Kool-Aid McKinstry in a practice, right? One of our D-backs. He'd go up to Kool-Aid, and you and I have been around plenty of coaches who think you just yell and scream and it gets the job done. Unfortunately, you do have to have a strategy after the yelling and screaming. So Saban would raise his voice, and there'd be times where he'd be angry, but he would always finish it. Now, Kool-Aid, is that the way we do things here? right? So there would be a question after he may stop him. Hey. Now, Kool-Aid, footwork, this. Is that the way we do things here? And then he would make Kool-Aid answer. And I've always believed, I did research years ago from a guy named Max Weber. I've always believed in questions over statements. Anybody can point and scream in somebody's face. But when you ask a question, they engage, they take ownership, they give an answer, they're more likely to follow through with the behavior. He was legendary at that. So even though he would yell, he would then give it back to Kool-Aid so that Kool-Aid could take ownership of the answer. And Kool-Aid could say, no, coach, we should do it this way. Okay, well, the next time, let's do that. And then Kool-Aid feels like they worked together to identify the solution. The second thing was, which was really amazing about Coach Saban, I was actually the only non-doctor on the mental side in the building. So there were actually 5 of us. I think I was the only one who traveled from outside of the state of Alabama. And they had Dr. Brett McCabe. They had Dr. Rosen, who's still at Michigan State, legendary Dr. Rosen. I mean, it was amazing what they had. I was the only one who wasn't a doctor. But he had 5 people in the building because his philosophy was, what if somebody doesn't like Ben? What if somebody's like, I don't like that vein popping out of his neck. That guy's too intense for me. That's not my jam, you know? And so then they need somebody who's more laid back, a little softer, right? So he always got the players what they needed. But I share that to then tell this story to answer the question the second way, was that many people, I think, see Coach Saban, you know, controlling, he wanted people to help. I remember there was one time we were walking off the practice field. It was the year after we won the national championship in 2020. And there just wasn't the same level of ownership in the program. So he waits for me. I would always have to wait for him in the same spot. And I will joke with you guys and tell you, if he was on one day, you are praying that he did not want to talk to you, but you had to wait in that one spot. And so you're hoping for a good day. And he walks off the field that day in a relatively good mood. And he says, Ben, walk with me. I said, okay, coach. So we start walking towards his office, towards the building. And he says, I want to ask your question on something. What are you observing? Why are things different right now? It just doesn't seem the same as last year. And I said, hey, coach, I said, if I could share, I remember how powerful it was when the captains had players only captains meeting to take ownership. I don't think those are happening anymore. Are they? And he looked at me and he goes, we're not doing those. And I said, well, coach, I would suggest to try that again because I think it'll give the players the ownership that they had last year. He goes, that's exactly what we need to do. Wow. And the players went back to doing that. And I would submit till the day is long. I was there. It just crushed me. But when Jamison Williams went down with his torn ACL, after we lost John Mechie in the pursuit, we would have literally beat Georgia that night if Jamison Williams hadn't gone down. We would have won back-to-back. So they did everything that was in their control, minus some terrible injuries that hurt us. But they regained ownership. And so I think a lot of times people see these leaders, they're demonstrative. They want everything their way. I think you could attest to it too. Some of the greatest leaders, people think that, but they don't really know what goes on in the building. And he always wanted to find ways to get better or to get the players what they needed.
Mm-hmm. And what role did accountability play? What was his strategy around accountability? I'm just curious because he got them to, winning solves a lot of problems, right? But to me, the ability for them to people wanted to play for him because they knew what that would look like. But what was his approach to accountability? Because that's obviously critical.
Well, first off,
maybe there's a good story.
Imagine a depth chart where everybody's a 5-star or a 4-star. I mean, you talk about built-in accountability. If your ankle's bothering you, there's another 5-star who's taking your job. So it's you had no choice because of the way that they recruited. Like, you better do what you need to do. Otherwise, your job is going to be taken by somebody who's just as talented, if not maybe more talented. So a lot of it was kind of the built-in accountability. However, once again, he was always looking for tools that gave the players ownership. And so I remember it was after my second year, he had said, Ben, I would like for you to write a mental conditioning for success program for the team that we can use for recruiting. We can use it for development. And there were tools that were in that. Now, it wasn't just my work. He said, hey, here's other things we've used. And so I compiled the great success he'd had over all these years to say, okay, here's the manual that if we're recruiting somebody's son, we could literally say, hey, we're going to do all of these things for this side of the game as well as the physical side with your son. And so I wrote that program, and a lot of it was tools. Once again, I call it a prize fighter day, but the players would learn prize fighter day and what I call the burn when they got on campus. Like he would always say that I want you teaching those guys those two things the first visit you have with the rookies or the transfers, because those were the things that empowered them. So a prize fighter day essentially is them choosing what they need to do every day to win, academically, with their recovery, with breaking down game film, with their work on the field. So there were 7 areas that we broke down that we let them choose. Now, if you choose the wrong thing, you'd ask them a question, let them choose something else. But it was 7 things that made up what it meant for them to win. So you put the accountability right in front of their face, and then you compare it to a depth chart. They're going to do what they need to do, or they're just not going to play.
That's cool. You know, one of the Tom Izzo, who I know we both love, and Tom does this thing with his guys. At the beginning of the season, he'll put them in in the film room there at Michigan State, and he'll give them a 3x5 card, and he'll say, what would be an optimal season for you this season? Like, what are your goals this season? What would success look like? And I just want you to write those down. And it sort of sounds similar to something like this. And I know Nick and Tom are friends. And, and they write it all down. And then Tom would sit with them and say, hey, so like Draymond, right? Like if you want to get drafted into the NBA and I see you, dogging it down the court or not putting in the extra effort, do you want me to hold you accountable? Well, yeah, coach, totally. And it's so interesting as I hear you talk about Saban, Nick did at some of the same thing in regards to asking the question that unlocked the answer that then created the opportunity to hold them accountable into what they actually asked for in the end. I mean, it's so simple, but yet so effective.
And it is. And I think sometimes people with coaching, they try to make it too complex, but you just gave the same example with Draymond. He asked Draymond a question. You want to play in the NBA? Yes, I do. Do you want me to hold you? Okay, let's work on this together. But at the end of the day, Draymond said what he wanted. Tom Izzo didn't say, you are wasting your talent. You could be an NBA player.
Right.
Even if that was the truth, especially this day and age with so many different aspects that impact how kids show up. You can't, with 99% of the kids, you can't point in these kids' faces anymore and expect you're going to get a good result. Even if you're telling them the truth, it just doesn't work that way anymore. There's too many cooks in the kitchen impacting how that kid thinks or how she thinks when she shows up for her sport or for his sport. There's too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah. And Ben, I mean, you have worked with, and I mean, so many, as you said on the onset, businesses, leaders, corporations, I mean, Super Bowl champs, Fortune 500, executives. I mean, and this is just a big, broad, sweeping question because of the lens, Ben, that you've had that is so cool. What separates the good leaders, the good salespeople, the good teammates from the great ones? I mean, like, what do you think, if you had to boil that down, what is it from your lens? Because you've seen it both in sports and in business.
So when we wrote the book, The Standard, and I always joke because I have no problem giving him credit because he's awesome. I have one of the best behind-the-scenes writers, Brett Colson, in the world. And he always tells me, he goes, Ben, you are one of the best communicators and speakers, but brother, I need to help you put this into book form. Because it's like there's a difference between speaking and writing. And so I always want to give him credit because we literally write them together. And so when we came up with the idea to write the book, The Standard, a couple of years ago, that was the question that we really attacked and unpacked. Like, what is the difference? And I believe the difference comes down to discipline. It's always discipline that comes out in people's standards. And when your standards trump your feelings, so I always say standard over feelings. Don't allow your feelings to dictate how you show up. You have to understand the standards, the disciplines that cause you to win, and then be willing to do those things every day. Not occasionally, not when you feel like it. Right. It's literally every day. Yeah. And the Hall of Famers, the greats that you've worked with over all these years, they didn't lack discipline. Their discipline was probably extraordinary to the point where people could say, how does that person even show up the way that they do? You even referenced John Smoltz before we hit record. One of the greatest pitchers of all time, one of the greatest competitors of all time. You think that guy had poor discipline? Heck no. He's one of the most disciplined pitchers. I mean, I remember watching the guy warm up. I mean, the guy was just methodical. And it's like, well, how did he do that? And how did he do it for so long? Because he was so disciplined. Yep. And I believe the highest performers, they don't get seduced by success. And I think this is really important for those corporate leaders or for those people in sports. Here's one of my favorite questions, Molly. How do you show up after you win? It's a really powerful question. We have to understand as leaders and coaches, how do our players think after they win? Mm-hmm. Because that determines the true discipline. You either go, well, why do I need to work hard? We just won a championship. Or you say, I'm so in love with the process and the pursuit of the highest level of my standards. Yep. I knew we were going to win because that's a byproduct of great discipline. Back to John Smoltz. Why were the Braves so good forever and they're winning championships and a conference title? What was it, a decade under Bobby Cox? It was every year because they all worked. They believed, but they didn't get seduced by success. They would have won one pennant if that was the case.
Mm-hmm. You know, and it's interesting the way you unpack that, because in Dynamic Drive, I talk about how complacency, I think, is often the enemy of success, in the sense that the ripest time, I think, for complacency to often set in is after success. And what's interesting, Ben, and I'm curious as to your take on this, is that, you know, we live in a world where we see all these highlights of everything that happen in people's lives. And so they have this moment of achievement is what really often the world sees. But when we think about, like, discipline, certainly it's critical. But what do you think is the thing that people need inside of them? In addition to, they need the standards, and so that they don't overly focus on a goal, a outcome, a win, being number one, but yet are obsessed with getting better. Is it the lean on the standards consistently? Is it purpose? Is it what is it that helps people sustain success? Because that's different.
Yeah, so it that you're referring to is what I've found is the secret of the highest performers, and that's what I referenced earlier that Coach Saban always wanted me to share was the burn. Okay, and our podcast, we're in our 7th season. It's called The Burn, and every week I'm interviewing somebody who's sharing what the underlying fire is that actually ignites their why and purpose and causes them to show up on the days they don't feel like it, and especially after they win. So everybody's motivated different. And I want everybody to hear this correctly. I always like to highlight this. I'm not saying why and purpose is not important, but we as coaches and leaders and as individuals, we have to understand the underlying burn. So as an example, my mother is the greatest champion of life I've ever known. She passed 11 days before my 8th birthday. She was divorced from my father when I was 6 months old. My dad was a drug addict, alcoholic, manic depressive, bipolar, everything under the sun. My mother was a strong, powerful, courageous woman, had a rare muscle disease called amyloidosis, came to the dinner table with an IV stand when we had 24-hour nursing care in the house when I was a 7-year-old boy every night to ask me how my day was at school. So when my mother passed away 11 days before my 8th birthday, she left behind this amazing journal that's in the safe right next door. And it says things like, beat the statistics, beat the odds, live with the disease that's chronic and fatal, believe in yourself, combat anything, purpose in life. So when I think of my mother, there is a burn that lies inside of me. She passed away at 38. I'm a 46-year-old man. So I've been given the blessing of 8 extra years that my mom never got. You better damn well believe I will not waste a day. I don't have perfect days. I don't win every day, but I will not waste one. Every day is going to get everything that I've got. And that's all I know because that's my burn. So many individuals, there's a similar story. There's pain that fuels them. Other people, it might be, I had parents that had to have 2 jobs. They sacrificed for me to have my opportunity. I won't waste the sacrifice. Many of you listening, you're currently sacrificing for somebody in your home right now, and their little eyes, just like my little eyes watch my mom, those little eyes are watching you while you currently make sacrifice. You think of that burn in those little eyes, there's no wasting days. And then Molly, I bet this is some of your favorite stories too. I love the athletes, the competitors that say, I grew up with this person telling me I could never do it. This coach told me I could. And I call that the just watch me mentality. Like, you piss somebody off the right way, like it's over. Yeah. And so that becomes, so take that person, like you laughing, you could probably give me 50 examples of athletes you've worked with. Like that fuel, that's a burn that without understanding that, they'll never ignite the why and purpose the right way. So when they understand that, that's it. Like when you said it, to me in my work over for almost 20 years now, that's the burn. And when somebody understands that, and most people, once I discuss it, they know what I'm saying. They haven't called it the burn. That's just what I call it. But you know what I'm talking about. And when you go there and connect to it, that's it. It's a different level.
Yeah. How do you coach people? You know, there might be people listening going, well, like, I like my mom is still alive. Like I didn't have that. Or I mean, how do you coach people? Because I agree with you, Ben. Like, I think we all have something that is way bigger than what is maybe at the surface that drives us. And I think usually it's something that is, in fact, about others versus ourselves. I'm curious, how do you coach people? Maybe what are the kinds of questions you might pull forward that help somebody get to clarity around that burn so that they can ignite it?
So I'll actually give a fun example that's very relevant. I've never shared this because it literally just happened the other day, and it actually happened in our home, which makes it unique. So I'll share a very special story. But there's a question I want to share before I share this other example. I always like to paint it in a couple ways because people think differently. So now you'll have kind of my example and what I shared. There's also a powerful question because a lot of times we can work with a young performer, a young athlete, and they're like, I didn't have bad things happen. And so I always like to say, grab your future and bring it to today. What do you see? Now, anybody who tells you they have no vision, it's almost like, okay, we just can't work together. You can't tell me you see nothing. So it almost forces them to begin a conversation to see something. And they may say, I see that I'm going to be the most amazing mother and business leader that there ever was. Then it's a follow-up question. Well, how are you going to do that? Well, I'm going to have to be disciplined in everything that I do. Tell me more, and keep going in until you help them realize, okay, well, the job you have right now, or you being this tennis player right now, or you doing X, Y, and Z right now, are you taking ownership right now of that person you're telling me you see in the future? I'm not. Okay, well, maybe that's the burn, is you have to remember every day this person you just told me you want to be. And so what we do today manufactures everything we're going to achieve in the future. So it kind of goes back to the questions. It's not us just saying, oh, well, one day you'll find it, right? We have to take them there sometimes. So either you know what it is, it's clear when I describe it. That question can be powerful. And then sometimes it can be short term. And this is the one, I say this as a proud father, as I know you're a proud mother of 3 girls, but our daughter just completed her first year of varsity basketball. So she's 5'11" as a freshman. So I may need you to come out of retirement and get me an NIL deal. And she set some 3-point records on the varsity team for a freshman, the 4th most threes in the history of the school as a freshman. We have another highly rated, even higher rated in the state than her, the number 1 freshman in the state on her team. So they made a Final Four run as freshmen. It was amazing. Wow. And we get to the end of the year, And she received my daughter received all these accolades, honorable mention, all conference. But the district, they just kept her off of making the all district team. So here, she's never, like, we have a really fun life. She hasn't had a lot of it. And I could see fire in her eyes, Molly. And I'm like, babe, what's going on? And, she's disappointed. She's angry. And I said, well, what are you thinking? And she says, don't count me out. And I said, what? And she goes, Dad, it's going to make me emotional saying it. She's like, Dad, don't count me out. And I said, baby girl, like, you just found a whole different fuel now. And she's very competitive, works her butt. I mean, I'm taking her to the gym when we're done just to rebound for her. And they just got out of the Final Four last weekend. Like, she loves the work. But now that's a burn for her, but it's short term, because I will tell you this right now. She's going to look at that every day. We created an image, which is her with those words on it, and she's going to see it and be fueled by it. And I'm telling you, that girl's going to do everything within her power to be on that all district team and win a state title next year. So it's one of those things where it can either be long-term like mine. It'll never change. I mean, mine is so ingrained in me, Molly, it'll never change. But for my daughters, that's short-term, because when she does that next year, it's okay, what is it now? What's the new focus? And so I think sometimes people don't realize a short-term fire in you can be just as powerful as one like mine, which has lasted a lifetime. And so it shows up in different ways.
I love that. Congratulations. I mean, that is, man, that's cool. And I tell you, I tell my husband, I think that the father-daughter relationship is so critical with young girls. And so
don't even get me started. I'll be a mess.
I mean, I know, but it's just awesome. Good. I mean, good for us. So money. That's so awesome. I love it. What do you think when you think about? I mean, mindset is such a critical thing. It's what you've been a part of, impacting so many people, both in sports and in business. What do you think are some of the most common blockers, Ben, that stop people from unlocking their burn, tapping into their burn, to being the best version of themselves, best leader, best salesperson, best coach, whatever it might be? What's the most common things that block them?
I heard a pastor, his name is Dr. Jack Graham, give a sermon down in Texas. I mean, Molly, this was probably 20 years ago. And I'll never forget, he said, doubt your doubts and believe your beliefs. And I think the world we're in today is so chaotic. There's so many things that are coming at us. Just take a student athlete these days. I mean, 10 years, when we were at Michigan State, what athletes face today is nothing or what they faced then is nothing compared to social media. It's unbelievable. And so the amount of self-talk that exists that creates doubt, we have to continue to fuel, whether it's in the corporate world or in sports, to empower people, even when somebody tells you you can't. If the media tells you it's not your time, if the media says your team isn't good enough this year, it never matters what somebody else thinks. What matters is your willingness to believe and put great discipline. I like to say attack the process. To attack the process every day with great belief. And we have to silence self-talk. I see self-talk, and I know you do as well, destroy people's ability to find out how great they can be. And I hate using words like that, but it is destructive. Self-talk can be destructive.
Negative self-talk, Ben. I mean, obviously there's things
negative self-talk. Yes, sorry. Right. Negative self-talk. Yes.
Yeah. No, it can be. And so how have you gotten people, what is your strategy when you try to get somebody to sort of shift from sort of that, I call it sort of being an inner critic to an inner coach? I mean, My favorite story of that, I'll share because the jersey's behind me. So number 51, Will Compton, that was the first NFL player I ever worked with. I'll never forget. He was told he's too slow, would never make it in the NFL. He went undrafted. He signed as a free agent with the Redskins, joined the Redskins, 7 out of 7 on the depth chart. We had a mutual friend that said, you guys need to meet. So this is 2013. So we meet. He is from Bonne Terre, Missouri. I live in St. Louis. Arnold, smack dab in the middle. We meet at Arnold. I'm going to make a long story short. I look at him dead square in the eyes, and I said, first question, I just met this young kid.
I said, what's on your mind? Now, this is a former captain at Nebraska, the whole bit, getting ready to report to his first training camp in a month. Everybody's telling him, you're not the guy, you'll never make it. So what's on your mind? He said, if it doesn't work out with the Redskins, there's 31 other teams. And Molly, I knew I had him. Yeah. And I looked at him and I said, Will, let me ask you a question. I said, what if you woke up every day and you told yourself, I'm a linebacker with the Washington Redskins? And what about in the middle of the day when you were doubting yourself, you reminded yourself, I am a linebacker with the Washington Redskins? And what about when you go to bed at night, you remind yourself, I'm a linebacker with the Washington Redskins? The next day, so his eyes were ready to pop out of his head. He's ready to pounce over this booth. Right. I mean, he was like lit up. And he was like, it was like just the question reinstilled the belief. He's like, I'm thinking the wrong way. 24 hours later, I'm literally pulling into a parking spot the next day. I get a text message from him and it says, do you drink coffee? I'm like, this is really weird. I'm like, yes. He says, great post-workout drink, coffee, whey protein, and honey. Molly, I'm like, this is really weird. So I was like, okay, sounds great. I'll try it. He then responds back, that is what a linebacker with the Washington Redskins drinks.
That's killer. Wow.
Molly, he spent 9 years in the NFL. He became a captain of the Washington Redskins. He had the green dot on his helmet, became a captain of their defense to help get them back to the playoffs for the first time in 10 years. They lost to Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. I was there that day. It was amazing. But it all came down to him changing. And I think a lot of times people assume that this high executive or this athlete, they've got everything that they need. Mm-hmm. Our ability to help people as a parent, as a coach, as a friend, I just encourage everybody listening, don't assume that, your friend has it all taken care of and they don't need you. We all need help. We all struggle. We all have pain points. One of my coaches, her name is Laura Pierce. You'll love this, Molly. She's been my coach for over 20 years since I was a financial advisor. This woman knows me better than, other than like my wife. This woman knows, and she will literally tell me, hey, Ben, cut the bullshit. Like, we're getting down to work today. And she will just give me, because I don't need a pat on the back. I need somebody to directly go, Ben, I see something that you don't see. Today we're getting better. Because that's the only way we improve. And I think we owe it to the people that we're with and leading to be that difference.
Amen. 100%. She sounds killer, by the way. I mean, she's amazing. And just to be somebody that knows you that well, but it's so true. I mean, it's the story that I often tell when Smoltzy went from a starter to a closer back to a starter. And didn't really need to. In many ways, it was because the team needed him to. But when he got called in to go run in and close for the first time, right, everybody thought, what is this guy doing? Like, he's insane. I mean, he's got cortisone shots till you can't see straight. His arms are racked. And John had a choice, right, to believe the noise that this is crazy, what are you doing? Or shift the story, step out on the mound and do what he did, which was, 55 saves that season. So the story we tell ourselves is, it's critical, and that shift is powerful. I'm curious, when we think about leadership and culture, you've been inside of teams and seen great cultures. You've seen cultures and teams that have needed to make some shifts. One of the things that is so hard, I think, in life, personally and professionally, is giving and receiving feedback, but yet is such a critical component of our growth. And Ben, it's funny because you and I look at so many things through the lens of sports, and I think it's always, how traditionally companies do, an annual review with their employee, right? And they sit down and they go through sort of what worked, what didn't, all the things. And I often will draw the metaphor of like, what if Coach Saban, they played every practice, they played every game, and at the end of the season, Nick brought him in and was like, hey, here's a couple things, in the practice. How weird would that be? But yet business is like that. Like, and I'm jacked up because I sort of, isn't that weird? But I look at everything through the lens of sports and I'm like, well, that's weird. Like, nobody would ever think that was even remotely So, right? But I'm curious, in business, it's something that I hear a lot. I'm sure you do too before keynotes when you talk about, accountability, feedback, coaching. What do you see great leaders do? And we've talked about asking questions, and so you've covered up. But what are the things that you see?
Yeah, I always, there's so many stories I could share here, but I'll just give it a direct point. I always teach something that I call unexpected intentional touches. I encourage leaders in corporate environments. When I walk by Molly's office and she is on fire, there are far too many leaders who go back to their office, they take a note, oh, Molly on March the 26th was on fire. And 3 months from then for her 6-month review, they're like, hey, Molly, back in March, you were on fire. Like, what's the point, right?
Right, totally.
Whereas to your point, we have to constantly be breaking down the game film, and nothing is better than in real time being recognized for being great. And so I always encourage people, if I walk by Molly's office and she's on fire, I'm going right back to my office. How simple is it these days? I'm going to send a text. Hey, Molly, I just want to let you know you are on fire right now, and I so much appreciate you being part of our team. Boom. And I think that's where in the corporate space, we have to help leaders improve on taking ownership. I could just keep laughing over the example because it really is crazy to think. Like,
Right.
I mean, Nick Saban would never just wait until the end of the year and discuss the whole year. I mean, it's like it's in real time in the game. It's an adjustment at halftime. There's no waiting until the end of the year. Yet in a corporate space, if it's quarterly reviews, then it's quarterly. It goes in the file. If it's semi-annual, and to your point, some of it is an annual 360. Who cares about going 360 on an annual basis when I needed you to help me 10 months ago?
Right, totally, 100%. So Ben, I mean, you coach to coach. I'm sorry, my guys will cut that. Your coach to coach program. I read about it. I saw it. It seems incredibly cool given the experiences that you've had. It's incredible. Who's it for? I mean, who's in that program?
So a couple of years ago, I just had people, and it was very humbling, but, people reached out and they're like, okay, you've been doing this for a long time. And, Molly, I was so excited to be on the show with you, not just because of Spartans, but just so appreciative because I've admired your work for a long time. Got to give a shout out to John Gordner. He's going to kill us. I can't wait for us to finally share the stage at his training camp event in May. He will kill us if we don't do that. So, John, we love you. There you go. But
May 14th and 15th, baby.
There you go. Even give them the dates. May 14th and 15th, Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida. Make sure you come and see us. But people started beating my door down because there aren't many people who have done this in this space as long as you and I have, and some of our friends who have really, this is a career and a passion and a love of what we do. And so I had people just for years, they'd say, can you take us behind the scenes? And finally, 2 years ago, we said, okay, I would love to do that so the impact can be greater because one person can only do so much. And so now over an 8-week period of time, we take people behind the scenes. We teach the psychology, the scaling, the marketing, the branding, the communication, all the tools that I've used for coaching, for ownership, questions over statements. Imagine what we just did today, a deep dive over 8 weeks. And like our next class starts in April. We have one of the greatest hitters in the history of Major League Baseball joining us who now speaks. We've got a former All-Pro from the NFL. We've got a pastor from an NFL team. We have an individual running a $100 million organization. I mean, these are leaders in business. These are leaders in sports. These are coaches. These are speakers. And Molly, 2 years ago, for it to have been an idea, to now we've literally, every class has professional athletes, Hall of Famers, Olympians, these all-stars in business. It's fun because the groups are never more than 50 people. And so it's this opportunity where we learn from each other. And then when you graduate, you're part of an alumni group. So if Molly Fletcher throws an event, she goes into the director and she's like, okay, I'm taking that all-star from business. She was amazing. I remember when she said this in our class. I'm taking that Olympian and here. And so we wanted to provide an alumni group, an association, a family of high performers that we found hadn't existed yet in the marketplace.
That is all. And is it virtual? Is it all virtual? It's a program online.
It's all virtual. So there's details at thecoachtocoaches.com. And then we do a few in-person events a year, and those are more designed for people to come together to meet each other. And we'll bring in speakers, and those are amazing events. But the delivery of that course is virtual because it's like a course. There's homework, there's expectations, there's standards, there's things we put people to work on because we want to help them grow.
Yeah, amen. I love it. And what's neat about that is you and I know as speakers, you deliver a message and you maybe connect with folks for a little bit after, but it's so fun to stay beside them and watch them grow. So that is awesome. So Ben, listen, you got to go rebound for your daughter. So I'm going to hit you with some rapid fire and we'll wrap this bad boy up. What is your morning routine?
So my morning routine's a little bit crazy. The morning time, I take advantage of the early morning time. I take advantage of the darkness in the morning, and there's reading, there's messaging that goes out to clients. There's a workout, this crazy workout that I do. And I don't say this to impress anybody, but the workout takes about an hour. I've done it for 2,100 straight days. And so my workout is very important for me. I've got some screws loose, Molly. So
I love it, though. This is killer.
The workout is very important to me. We're actually going to do it at the training camp event, so we're going to see how many coaches show up to go through my workout. But there's just a whole series. On the morning of the
15th, dude, I'm going to that.
Oh, yeah.
Sean McVay is going to be in my dust. No, I'm just kidding.
It's called. Hey, McVay's a great guy. I will tell McVay as well that he's got to do this workout. But so it's one of those things. There's these little things I've found, and I could go through my whole routine, but it's the Bible. It's visualization. There's some journaling that I do. There's speaking to the little boy inside me because there's pain there from things that I had as a kid. Like there's a lot of intentional things that I do that prepare my mind for the day. And I could give my whole routine. We could walk through it, but I would encourage everybody. I'd almost put it back on everybody. Find the routine that works for you so that mentally when you get hit, because we're all going to get hit every day. Sometimes it's hard and sometimes it's a light jab, but you're going to get hit. Make sure you're prepared when that first punch hits you. And I think we all know the things we need to do, but the real high performers care enough about their morning routine to choose the right disciplines and to do them every day so that they're ready to win one day at a time.
What about your evening routine? What do you do?
Evening routine is all family. Believe it or not, there's no journaling. There's none of that. Okay. I go so fast and so hard that I'm either in a gym watching the kids or we are making sure we're sitting down at that table to eat together. We'll watch hoops together. We'll spend time together. It's really family time for me because family time is so important. So anything I can do with my family is my evening routine.
Amen. I love it. So last question. What's the book you most recommend for business people to read? In addition to your book, which you're so humble.
I will not recommend. I will not recommend any of my books. I will give you two. One, Training Camp by John Gordon, which really is one of my favorite books. He gave me the manuscript before it got published. And so he's mentored me since 2008. So when I got to read that, it's one of my favorite books of all time. Coach Ken, the coach in that book, is one of the greatest characters ever written in a book. But I think a one that I really recommend people read is Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. And even though his intensity, some people think is too much, just some of where he takes you mentally, I think is to a dark place that we all need to go to understand that sometimes in our brokenness or in our pain is actually where we find our greatest strength. And I think Can't Hurt Me is a must for anybody who really wants to unpack at a real level what it takes to figure out mentally how tough you are.
That's good stuff. That's cool. I need to read that. He is intense, no doubt. Didn't he just recently break both of his legs on purpose to see if he could, or something incredible like that? I mean, he is no joke.
Are you serious? I wouldn't be shocked.
I think it was something like that. So who or what is a game? Yeah. Last question, Ben. Who or what is a game changer who inspires you and why?
Well, I'll use the example of I mean my mom, which everybody knows that answer, and so people would expect that answer. That's my fuel and my burn. But two individuals outside of my mom and my family to kind of give you the answers outside of that is probably Ed Milet and John Gordon. Those are two individuals where in my mind, I could tell you specific times, specific things they said that I needed when they said it to make sure that I believed in myself at the level I needed to believe in. And those are just two men that I love to death. And I wouldn't be where I am without them challenging me and believing in me. And so I'm grateful for them and their leadership.
Well, I have heard they are the same with you too, Ben. Grateful for you. Thank you so much. Go green.
Go white, and it is a green march. We got some work to do with these Spartans.
We got it, baby. We got it. Thanks so much, Ben. Super fun.
Thanks for having me, Molly. I appreciate it.